Alright, so I got the playfield all cleaned up, ready to do touch-ups. I just use this little folding table and my little chair here. I also have a little work light, helps me get light directly on the playfield so I can see what I'm doing better. And then I have my assortment of tools here. I just got a bucket that I'm going to put water in it to clean my brushes. This is one of these 99-cent pallets that you get at the craft store. They work good for mixing your paints. I just use a toothpick to mix the paints together if I need to mix a color. I usually buy one of these little value packs of brushes. They're real cheap brushes. You don't get a lot of uses out of them, but they work good. Also, if you have a larger area to paint, this extender, it's kind of like a thinner. It helps to get the brush strokes out when you're doing a larger area, like I have this larger area right here to do. Just helps get the brush strokes out. I don't use it a lot for playfields. I mainly use this for back glasses, but I do use it occasionally on playfields. And then of course we have our assortment of acrylic paints. I happen to have a pretty good assortment. Every time I go to the AC Moore or the Michaels, I pick up a bunch. Basically, usually if I need a particular color that I don't have, if I need a blue, I'll get 5 blues that are around the blue that I need. Just so I make sure I have a color that's close. These are just your regular 99-cent acrylic paints that you can get at any craft store, AC Moore, Michaels, whatever you happen to have local. Also, once you get a lot, you might want to get this nice handy rack. But that's about it. We're going to start painting. The other thing you'll notice is that the playfield actually looks a little worse than it did before. That's because of the 600 dry sand and made it a little dull. But like I said, that's good for getting the clear coat to bite, and it also helps me with the touch-up process. So that's where we're at, and now we're going to do some touch-ups. So normally when you're doing the touch-ups, you want to start somewhere around in the middle and work your way out. That way you're not putting your elbow in wet paint and stuff. That's if you're doing big areas at one time. What I tend to like to do is I will come home from work and maybe I'll spend a half hour or an hour doing a little bit of touch-up, and then I'll come back the next night and do some more. That way I don't get burned out doing it, because this is kind of tedious. So for now I'm just going to start with something easy, just to paint some of these this black area that needs it. So I just dab a little paint on my brush, and I kind of dab a little bit in the area. Now this is called the smear technique. And this is the easiest technique in touching up playfields. You just smear a little on, and then you just take your finger and you can kind of smear it off. Or you can kind of dampen a paper towel a little bit and just give it a little dab. And what that'll do is that'll take the paint away on the flat surface of the playfield, but it'll leave the paint in that little divot. But a lot of times, these bigger cracks like this, you can just dab a little paint in there and leave it. It'll kind of flatten out as it dries. And on most playfields, there's a lot of this craze, and it's kind of from the planking of the playfield, and the silkscreen ink peels off. So this makes a big difference in the playfield. Like, if you're not comfortable doing a real artsy part of the playfield, you know, just doing these little cracks in all the solid colors makes a big difference. That and the key lines will make the playfield look, you know, 100% better than it did before. So if you've never done this before, it's really not that bad. It's, you know, once you have the paints and the brushes, and you know, you get down and you just sit down, and it's almost enjoyable sometimes. So we're going to finish up the vast majority of the black. And when I come back, I'll show you that. And then we'll tackle something a little more difficult. So I've probably spent about 5 minutes on this area here. You can see how solid that looks compared to this here, which is what this looked like 5 minutes ago. So just doing that little dab it in all them spots makes a big difference. And we're going to do that on all the colors, the green, the red here. There's a reason I start with black. And the reason I start with black is obviously the easiest color to match, number one. Also, the black in these acrylics has a very high pigment compound. It usually only takes one coat of the black. You'll find on some of the colors, especially the yellow and the red, is a real pain in the neck because it takes multiple coats to make it look right. There's just not enough pigment, I guess, in the paint. I guess the alternative would be to spend a little more money and buy a better acrylic paint, but you know, for all the colors that we need to do these playfields, it's not really worth it. But so I'm going to continue doing this, and when I come back, we'll tackle another area.